Hey witches, Tiffany here on Bewitching.Bemused. Today we're going to cover what I think, just my personal opinion, what I think are some of the must-have items for a beginner witch's magic kit. This was a request made a while back by Marissa Roberts. So first of all, thank you so much, Marissa, for this suggestion for a video topic. Now, a couple of things about this. Marissa did specify a Wiccan witch, which, well, I'm not a Wiccan myself, so forgive me if this isn't Wiccan specific, which is not really my intention with it. So sorry, Marissa, it is a little bit off. If there are any Wiccans watching that want to, have their own input, feel free to leave that down in the comments below for some, like Wiccan specific suggestions. The other part of this is that Marissa asked for ideas for herbs and spices. Now, I am going to cover that. We're going to get to that towards the end of the video, but I wanted to go a little bit broader. Therefore, I am going to cover a general list of items that I think every beginning magic practitioner should have. The first item is the magic journal, which I promise I won't talk about this for too long because I've already done that in another video. So let me just briefly state that major reasons that it's important to have a magic journal is because this is a journey and it is one of discovery and experimentation. How do you know if certain things work for you or don't work for you if you aren't tracking them and recording your results in order to go back and kind of look at the data and see, well, what worked for you and what didn't? I think it's important to do that for spell work as well as for divination. And like I said, this is a journey of discovery. So it's not just about like, did this spell work? Although that is part of it. I don't know why I'm using that mocking tone when that's definitely a big reason to use it and I'm the one that's making that point. But part of the witchcraft journey is also to discover the magic in the world around you and finding the magical in the mundane things. So I think it's important, especially as a beginner, but at any point along your path, to be tracking certain things, synchronicities or things that may be interpreted as signs and omens, and just in general, things kind of coming together. It's a great way to train yourself to start finding the magical in the mundane and seeing the magic in just everyday life and in the world around you. Now, I have published a series of books. One is a dream journal, one is a divination journal, and one is a spell journal. It says magic journal, but specifically for spells. Now, you can purchase these. I bring them up only because I wrote them, so I think it's my job to market them, of course. But in all honesty and transparency, you can get away with just a spiral notebook or a Word doc on your computer. And in all honesty, none of those really have spaces to write down specifics of your day-to-day, like daily experiences and synchronicities and things like that. Just more, hey, did this spell manifest? Okay, how did that happen? When did it happen? Where did it happen? Or, hey, your daily divination reading. Well, how did that work out for you? Did you interpret it correctly? Did what was supposed to happen that you thought was going to happen come to pass? So it's linked to very specific work that you did, but there's no like just blank journal space to write in. So just to be honest in my advertising. But like I said, you don't have to purchase anything. Just go to the dollar store. Well, I guess that's still a purchase, but go to the dollar store, pick up a spiral notebook, and just keep track of things that way. The next item is some form of divination tool. Now, divination is not just the act of, foretelling the future, but you can also use it to see, if you're questioning doing a certain spell, you can use divination to see what the results of the spell might be, if it comes to pass in your favor, if it's going to work out the way that you intend for it to work out, if it's not going to work at all. But they're also wonderful to use for personal insight, to try to get to know yourself better. And they're also a tool for communication with spirit. And they're also a tool for just in general strengthening your intuition, which even if you're not looking to develop, psychic abilities or things like that, developing your intuition is so much more than just psychic abilities and psychic awareness. So I highly recommend you get yourself a divination tool. You can start off with just one. I always recommend kind of experimenting with multiple, but to begin, you just need one. And you don't even have to purchase anything. You can take a deck of playing cards and convert them into a tarot deck. You can go out and find some flat stones and convert those into runes. You can collect items and turn it into a bone throwing bag. I'll link a video for that down below in the description box. You can tie a ring to a piece of string and turn it into a pendulum. It's just another skill that I recommend you pick up and start practicing. You may not be great at it right away, especially interpreting results. At least I know I was really bad at that at first in every form of divination, but that's why it's a skill that requires practice. The next thing I recommend is some form of meditation app. The reason for this is because when a lot of people start meditation, especially daily meditation, it's very frustrating. Let's be real, nobody is good at it to start off, and it can be frustrating because it takes a while to come to that acceptance of thoughts are supposed to come into your mind, even if you know logically that thoughts are, the whole purpose of meditation is for thoughts to pop up in your mind, you start to notice them faster, and then you release them, and over time you notice it faster and you release them easier. But in the beginning, it's pretty frustrating, let's be real, where you'll be on a runaway train of thought for like 5 minutes before you realize it. Whereas later on with daily practice, it's more like 20 seconds you realize. And of course, it's much harder to banish those thoughts from your mind and let them go in the beginning than it is later on. And so I always recommend starting off with some form of meditation assistance. Personally, I love meditation apps, and there's so many free ones out there. And it's not just apps, I just say that to kind of make this section neat and precise, but you could use YouTube videos, you could find something on Spotify, and I recommend something like guided meditation. And as I always say, eventually you do need to graduate up from guided meditation, but that is a wonderful place to start. And of course, they make ones with nature sounds or with calming music. My personal favorite one, and I swear I'm not getting paid to plug this, and as far as I know, it's only available on Android, is called Meditation-Music. I'll link it down below because there are a few apps called that. And in that app, you can customize your tracks for different types of nature sounds, how loud you want each of those nature sounds, and you can also add different types of music to it. And another thing about it is you can set a timer, because when you start with meditation, of course, we all go, I'm gonna meditate for a full hour. At least I know I said that in the beginning, and I never could do that. It was so hard. All you really need to start with is 5 minutes a day. If you wanna graduate on up later, which I recommend that you do, you can, but just start with 5, because eventually you're gonna lose patience pretty quickly, and you don't want to do that. You want to be able to not get frustrated and not lose patience, so you can keep it a daily practice. I have a video and an article all about why meditation is super important for your craft and for magic, and so if you're not sure, I will link those down below for you to peruse. The next one is a library card. Okay, we all probably know this. Witchcraft, paganism, spirituality, magic, everything involved under that great big umbrella is a lifelong pursuit, and it requires lifelong study. We both fortunately and unfortunately don't have one single book we can reference and it gives us all the rules and everything else. And a lot of this, like I already said, is a journey of discovery, and it's also highly customizable, so you should be working on finding what fits for you, especially if you think you might be an eclectic witch or you haven't found your path or tradition yet. But even if you have, it is good to constantly be learning. But here's the thing, costs of books really do start to add up, so please take advantage of your local libraries. If you get yourself a library card, not only do you have access to, like I said, all of your local libraries, but nowadays, most of them also have an online website where you can get audiobooks and PDFs. So do yourself a favor and save a ton of money. You know, you can always get a book for free, and if you really, really like it, then go out and buy it. But in the meantime, don't spend the money on it. Just utilize your libraries. They're super important and they're there for a reason. They want to be used. And it's a lot less wasteful as well. So anyway, get yourself a library card. And if you're interested in what are some of my top picks for books that I recommend to beginners, I'm going to link an article down below. It's called My Top 12 Tips for Witchcraft Beginners or something like that. But I think it's like the very first tip will have all the books that I recommend. I do have a video with essentially the same content, but over time I've actually kind of changed opinions on some of the books that I recommended in that video, so we're gonna go with the article. Next up is a simple cleansing tool. Anywhere in the beginning of your witchcraft journey, you're probably already aware of the importance of keeping yourself, your tools, your ingredients, and your space cleansed of negative energy. Just the words negative energy probably makes it obvious as to why it's important. So find yourself a solid, simple cleansing tool. If you prefer smoke cleansing, you don't have to go out and buy a bunch of incense, although, I mean, you can if you want, but I recommend bundles. Something like sage or rosemary or pine are all great options. And bundles, if you extinguish them, can last you a really long time. If you don't like smoke cleansing, or it's just not your jam, or you're not able to burn things or have smoke in where you live, another wonderful option is sound cleansing. I did make a whole video with instructions on how to do that, but sound cleansing is a wonderful option. So all you would need to do is go out and buy a bell or a drum, just like I said, something very simple. And then there are some obvious resources like using the sun to cleanse or using water to cleanse. Those are, very easy access to those things. Just keep in mind that some crystals will dissolve in water if left in it for too long, or their color will fade in the sun. And I mean, it can be a little bit difficult because obviously, you don't want to submerge all your herbs in water, especially if you plan on burning them and you don't have time to wait for them to dry. It just sounds like a huge hassle. So while you don't want to not utilize free, sustainable, and easy to access sources of cleansing like the sun or water, it's not always doable for everything across the board. So I do recommend having just one simple tool for a one-size-fits-all approach. Okay, let's get to the ingredients sections of this beginner's kit, because I know that's what most of you are here for. Hopefully you didn't just fast forward to this point, but I'm not the boss of you. So first of all, while I do have my opinions on correspondences, and I do think that you should find and discover your own correspondences for things and discover magical properties for yourself. I'm very opinionated about this. I'll link the article that kind of sums it all up down below, called Demystifying Magical Correspondences. I think that's what it's called. While I do believe that, I also do believe that there are some things that are sort of universally accepted as having certain correspondences. Like, we've all pretty much agreed on the fact that this shape means love, or it means a heart, even though it looks literally nothing like an actual human heart. And we also know that love is not, the emotion is not felt in the heart, it's more to do with the brain. And yet we all agree that this is a heart and this means love. So certain things are very universally accepted. You can kind of consider it tapping into the collective unconscious, if you will. If you want to read more about that, really check out that article below that I mentioned earlier, Demystifying Magical Correspondences. So in addition to all those things I just listed, which are also very important, I know people want to hear more about herbs, spices, crystals, things like that, the ingredients side of things, to kind of just be prepared and get started. The first thing I recommend are white candles. White candles, yes, they can be used for health and for purity and things like that, but they are also neutral candles. They can be used to replace any other color corresponding candle. It would be great to always have the right color on hand at the right time, but that's not always the case. And so it's great to just buy a bunch of white candles in bulk. It's so much easier. It'll save you time, energy, and money, and a ton of space on storage. The next thing in a very similar vein is olive oil. Just like the white candle, olive oil, while yes, it does have its own specific correspondences, it is also a neutral oil, and it can be used to replace any other oil for anointing. I always recommend that you add some herbs and spices and that sort of thing to give it a little more oomph and kind of make it a little bit more intention specific. But if you need to anoint, olive oil will do the trick. You don't always have to have the specific essential oil for everything. Next up is the clear quartz crystal, and yes, what a shock. This is another neutral territory one. Has its own set of correspondences, but can also be used to replace other crystals. And one of the best highlights about the clear quartz crystal is that it can amplify intention and magic. Moving on to herbs and spices, the first one is salt, used for purification and protection, primarily anyway. You can use it for drawing a circle around you during ritual, just indoors, not if you're outside. You don't want to pour it on grass. Place it in doorways and windowsills, add it to a ritual bath, or put it in jars, bottles, or charm bags. The next one I recommend is black pepper. Black pepper is another one sort of for protection, but it's more in line with banishing and warding, and it does make a wonderful staple to your magic kit. The next two I have to recommend are herbs. The first one being rosemary. Rosemary is great for purification, blessing, love, wealth, and healing. It is a wonderful sort of all-purpose herb, and it's also really easy to grow. It also smells really good when it's burned, and you know, honestly, I can't say that about all herbs and spices. So rosemary, I recommend. And finally, bay leaves. Now, bay laurel leaves, just like rosemary, have a lot of general correspondences that, like I said, are pretty universal. We all pretty much agree on these things. But the other thing with bay leaves is they are, in and of themselves, a single ingredient ritual item. Most witches have heard of the ritual where it's really simple. All you do is write your intention on a bay leaf, either in a short phrase, a couple of words, or you even write it in symbol form, whatever you can kind of fit onto the leaf, and then you burn it while visualizing that intention manifesting. It's super simple, so I highly recommend bay leaves, if nothing else, just so you have that spell on hand. While I do feel that those 4 herbs and spices are more than enough to get anybody started, I did want to give you a few more of those sort of all-in-one herbs that, you know, suit a ton of different intentions. There is lavender for easing anxiety, sleep, beauty, love, dreaming, and healing. Next is thyme for boosting overall positivity, intuition, courage, friendship, love, health, and wealth. Then there's cinnamon for luck, strength, protection, drive and ambition, success, good health, and prosperity. Then we have mugwort for deep sleep, prophetic dreams, divine connection, and astral projection. And lastly, we have sage for cleansing and purification, abundance, youthfulness, wisdom, and knowledge. Now, in addition to all of that, I have a couple of final notes that I feel like is not said enough to beginner witches. The first one being, you should definitely harvest your own items. Again, I talk about this in that correspondence article that I'm going to link down below, where I talk about why it's important for you to discover your own, you know, magical properties of things for yourself. And I also give instructions on how to do that. I really think you should go out into the world, go for a hike, go on an adventure, find a forest, or go to the beach or into the mountains, and just find things that call out to you. Sit with them, feel them out, meditate over it. Even if you live in a city, there's plenty of ways for you to get into touch with nature, even if it's just, you know, those little planter boxes on the sidewalk. Almost anything in nature can be used as a magical ingredient. It doesn't just have to be herbs and spices. It could be leaves, it could be twigs, bark, rocks. Yes, we all love crystals, but basic rocks are also wonderful in and of themselves, and they carry their own type of energy. Collect different types of waters. Charge up your water in the sun, at the solstices, at the equinoxes, in the full moon, in the dark moon. It's going to really help you get in touch with the natural world that is immediately around you. It's going to help you feel more connected to your own power as well, and it helps you to start feeling and reading energy. There's just, I mean, those are not the only benefits. There's a ton. So I really cannot recommend this enough. The only thing that I suggest is that you just be careful. You know, if you're going out into nature, don't just wander off the path. That can be dangerous. You don't want to start You want to be respectful as well. You don't want to start ripping up an endangered plant or messing with an animal's home or something. So just be respectful and careful. And of course, it's always nice to ask permission first and leave behind an offering. A simple offering is fine. You can pick up some trash, or you can, water a nearby plant. And don't be too greedy either. For instance, if a bush is flowering and they're all blossoming and it's beautiful, but there's only 5 of them on there, I'm not gonna touch it. But if there's 20 of them on there, I might take like 4 of them. Anyway, please, like I said, do the further reading in that article down below. It'll give you a lot more information behind all of this. Next tip that I don't think is said enough is to get specific. If there is something that is a style of magic, I should say, that's currently piquing your interest, you don't need to spread out and get oil and candles and herbs and spices and this and that and blah blah blah. Do still get the things I mentioned earlier. Get the library card, get the cleansing tool, get the journal, do all of that. But as far as ingredients go, if you're really interested in something like cord magic, then just go get a multi-pack of different colored cords. Start playing with that first. You can broaden out later, but kind of focus in on the one thing that really piques your interest. Or candle magic. I did mention the white candle, yes, but if you are just really excited by candle magic, go get a multi-pack of different colored charmed candles, or different colored chime candles. You'll charm them yourself. And you don't necessarily need to worry about the herbs and the spices and the oils. Yes, you can do anointing and dressing of candles later, but honestly, you can do a lot of candle magic by just carving a symbol into the candle of what your intention is, and then charging it with your intention, lighting it with intention, and visualizing the manifestation of your intention. That will take you a long way. So you get to start playing with magic and kind of, flexing your magical muscles, so to speak, and exploring this area that piqued your interest to begin with, without having to go out and buy a ton of different ingredients. Now, if you don't have something like one area that's piquing your interest, that's completely fine too. Like I said, that's why I gave that list earlier of the white candle, the clear quartz crystal, the salt, the pepper, the olive oil, blah, blah, blah. All right, that's really it for today. Now, keep in mind, this is just my opinion. If you think that I left something out, or if you think that something I listed is completely unnecessary, please let me know down in the comments below. The additional reading and watching that I've mentioned throughout this video, like I said, will all be listed down below in the description box. I will also post the links to those journals that I mentioned that I made earlier, the spell journal, the dream journal, and the daily divination journal. If you prefer printable formats, I will also link my website down below, where I do sell the printable format, so you can just kind of print off as many sheets as you like and organize them in a binder or whatever, however you like. And finally, because it's still new and I'm still slowly getting it up and running, I must announce the website, Bewitching.Bemused.com. You can subscribe for articles. Most of my articles will kind of go hand in hand and match some of my videos. For instance, I wouldn't recommend reading this week's article because it will pretty much just be what I'm explaining in this video. But if you watch the video and you're like, hey, I'd rather have the article so I can reference back what she said earlier without having to rewatch the entire video and fast forward through it, well, the article is there. I will also be releasing things in article format that I feel work better in written format than they do in video format, and vice versa. There will be some videos I release that I just don't create, sister articles to go with. You can subscribe up for email notifications. I will not spam you. You will just get emails when I release a new article. Okay, I think that's it for all of my plugs for today. Marketing is awkward. So I will leave you alone. Yeah, I will see you guys next week. I hope this video was entertaining and informative. And as always, please stay magical.